Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next episode of Highlander History, where I'm honored and very excited about our guest today. Today, we are lucky to have Ricardo Bonhomme, a Somerville High School graduate. He attended Somerville High School in 2005 and graduated in 2009. Ricardo, thank you so much for being here today and spending a little time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stan. I appreciate it.
Of course. I'm going to ask you what is probably the most obvious question to ask any former student athlete. Tell us about your experience as a student athlete here at Somerville High School and how that kind of molded and shaped you for kind of after high school.
Yeah, I mean, it was, sports was kind of like my end all be all, we'll call it, and it kind of kept me on track. And my sister was actually a senior at the time when I was a freshman.
Awesome.
So she was kind of overseeing a lot of the things that was going on inside the high school and making sure I was, doing my work and making sure I was doing the right things at all times. So it's kind of been like ingrained into my day to day. I'm very structured. And that started off in high school, and playing sports and trying to be a student athlete is not the easiest thing in the world, and I still preach that to this day. Today's actually the day that I work with the student athletes, as you know, Stan.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's kind of sound like a broken record after a while, but like it does help, and the high school did prepare me for college, and there's a lot of things that essentially you learn as you go, we'll call it. Playing, sports at the next level, even at the Division III level where I played at WPI, it can be very time consuming, right? And you got to really, really prioritize and understand like what's important and what's not important. So, yeah, I mean, it was a fast 4 years. Freshman year was tough. Biology was one of the courses that, I struggled with. And my sister was kind of like, hey, if you don't get it together, you can't play basketball. And I'm like, whoa. She played a big part, kind of like the mom role, we'll call it. Because my mom essentially, she was always working all the time, and, that's your older sister. So you gotta, really listen to what they have to say, so I took it and I ran with it. And, sophomore year, a lot of things improved with my grades, started taking things a lot more seriously. And, as time went on, it was kind of like, this is moving fast, and then senior year hit and it's all like, a lot more scouts came in, and I'm like, all right, and then there was a lot of pressure from, WPI, and I had to have maintain a B average in pre-calculus my senior year. And, I was able to do it, but, it was good preparation going into college.
It's a great story. And I'll tell you what, it's nice to have that. Like, I love that you had your sister as kind of almost overseeing a mentor, almost like,
Yeah.
pushing you and motivating you. It's pretty awesome. And this because you were here and you deal with our student athletes. And I think sometimes, especially when they're young, they forget how important it is to keep up with your academics, right? And how that's connected to your athletics, how important that is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing worse, Ricardo, as a student athlete, and we both have seen kids who have fallen off a little bit academically. There's nothing worse than telling a kid they can't play a sport because they're not academically eligible. It's a terrible feeling.
Oh yeah, I agree. So it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a real lot. Now, I got to believe, because of everything you accomplished and everything you went through, you must have multiple really good memories, like whether it be a really good game or a particular rivalry. Can you share one or two that kind of stand out, that is like, wow, that was such a defining moment or a really good memory?
In terms of competition on the basketball court, it would probably have to be against Malden senior year. It was back and forth, and I guess you call me an undersized big man because that's the position I ended up playing. And then once I got to college, I realized I'm not that big, right? 6'3", 160 pounds, walking out of Somerville High School is really not that big compared to 6'7", 215,
The truth,
250. But we had a lot of competition against Malden. We played in the summer league with Malden too. And then they had two brothers playing the 4 and 5 position. The younger brother was actually the 5. I think he ended up playing Division II somewhere. But we did have a lot of battles, and Coach Antonelli was actually really close with Coach Nally at Malden High School. So there was a lot of good and bad there. But at the same time, we had a lot of battles, and I guess I'm not sure if that answered the question, but that was one.
Does, yeah.
And then Central Catholic, it wasn't more of a rivalry. It was more of my last game of my senior year because we got knocked out. We ended up playing Lawrence, I believe, in like I want to say like the the first round. And there, if you go back to the highlight tape, Jeff Agenziano could probably bring it back to reality. We ended up winning that game, and then we ended up going back up to Lawrence to play Central.
Wow.
And at the time, Carson DeRocher was the center, and I don't know if you know Carson DeRocher, but he's 6'10", and he's a pretty big kid.
Yeah.
He ended up going to Providence, I believe, right out of high school. But that was essentially my last game, and I'll never forget it because we knew we weren't going to win the game when it all came down to it, but we gave it everything we had. And I remember being pulled out of the game. Coach Antonelli pulled me out like with the last minute left. All seniors get pulled out if they're in the game, and all the Somerville fans were there, and they gave me a standing ovation, and that really it always stuck with me, and like it really hit home because it was like my last game. I think I'm getting emotional now just talking about it, to be honest with you. It's been years.
It's amazing, buddy. It really, honestly is. It's funny, Ricardo. Sometimes when I ask that question, I think people naturally think that people will talk about memories regarding a win or scoring 50 points. It's not always the case. Sometimes a loss can leave just as much of an impression, right? It really does, man. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. So yeah, that's one that definitely stuck out, and it was my last game, so that's probably why it's the most relevant in my mind too.
I know you're still connected to a lot of people here, but just from a teammate standpoint, from a high school friend standpoint, are you still connected to all those people back when you were going to high school?
Oh yeah, yep, absolutely. I don't know if you guys know Yanni Terragadis.
Of course.
He's one of the soccer coaches. He's actually my best friend.
Awesome.
He was my best man last year too when I got married to Michelle Haggerty, who also went to Somerville High School.
Awesome.
Who's now Michelle Bonhomme. But I'm still really close with him. Kervin Edouard, who played Division II football right out of high school. He played at University of New Haven. Who else? There's Franklin Salvador, right? 1,000-point scorer. He's on the banner, right? I think I actually talked to him today, along with Yanni. So I keep in touch with a lot of them. I mean, we're all doing a lot of different things still.
It's awesome. Yeah, I think it's an important piece, and I'm a big fan of keeping your roots. As far as the people you're connected with, it's really nice to have those lifelong friendships. People you can call up or talk to or bounce something off of. I think it's
absolutely.
It's a special part of being a community, right? Which I think is pretty awesome.
Yep, I agree, 100%.
Truly. Tell the people who are going to watch this what you're doing today. What you're doing professionally.
Oh, a little bit of everything, we'll call it. So since college, I graduated from WPI in 2013. I took on a role as a supervisor for about 6 months, and then I eventually ended up landing at Raytheon. And this was through a mutual friend who I actually got recruited to play basketball, in college. And he ended up getting me into Raytheon. So right now I'm a program operations manager at Raytheon. I've been there for about almost 7 years now. Yes. Student athlete mentor here at Somerville High School. I've been doing it for about 6 years, right? And I love it. And I coach now at the International School of Boston in Cambridge. It's right near Mattnon High School. They're actually connected. And that's my second year coaching. I coach middle school boys. Awesome. So this year we're just running clinics. We actually started 2 weeks ago, so a lot of them are, they were winded the first week because it's been a long time since they've played some basketball.
Yeah, I believe it.
There's a lot of rules and restrictions, obviously, as you know, but it's more clinics, and we're not going to play games. But everyone, wears their masks. We have, sanitizer everywhere. They have designated, spots in the gym, and during the dead balls, they're not essentially allowed to, shoot around, even though they always want to shoot around. But yeah, I'm doing a lot. And I still find time to get things accomplished, and it's been a blessing. Everything is kind of, in the perfect world, I'd be a guidance counselor and a basketball coach. I tell everybody that, and I'm getting a little taste of everything right now. So it's nice,
I think that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, you mentioned you went to WPI. Yeah, I knew that because I know Mark Antonelli always speaks very highly of you. And tell us just a little bit about that experience, like that transition from going to Somerville High School to WPI. Did you enjoy it? It sounds like you really enjoyed your experience there, but tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was different, and I, at the time, to be honest with you, I didn't even have a license to drive. So wow. I went to school all the way in Worcester, and I remember my was it my senior year, there was a recruiter who came up to me, Robert Southall. He's now the head coach at Elms College.
Oh,
And I didn't even know what WPI was. It's so weird because I almost felt like I was in a bubble in Somerville because I didn't really go outside of the bubble unless it was for basketball. But it was an experience, and he came up to me, and I was just like, treated every recruiter the same. And in my head, I'm like, where's WPI? Where is that? I have no idea what that is. Another acronym to throw to the list here. And then a couple of years later, I ended up being there, and it was different. It's like a whole bunch of Big Bang Theory students walking around, and all the kids are extremely smart.
Yeah.
Right. And being on the basketball team was almost like its own family, and academically it was they did like almost like a trimester type deal where like every 7 weeks you were taking a new course. It was fast paced, very project based at WPI. And I went to school for essentially it was called management engineering with a concentration in manufacturing engineering. On every application when I was applying to go to college, I had psychology because, like I said, I wanted to be a guidance counselor and a basketball coach. So it was different changing my major. And this is kind of what I preach now to the students. It's like, really do your research, really understand what all the majors entail, right? Because we hear business administration, we hear management engineering, and like, what does that really entail? Right.
I think sometimes there's a fixation, and I understand why, or almost a pressure when you get to college to obviously declare a major so you can graduate. And there's a sense from a lot of students where, geez, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. And I always tell them, where you start and where you end are probably going to be two very different things.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Without COVID being here, would you normally be playing in leagues? Are you involved in leagues? Are you doing anything? How are you staying active?
Yeah. So with, moving into this new house that we bought in Lynn, I ended up investing heavily in, weightlifting equipment. So now there's a bench press downstairs. We have a jump rope. We have resistance bands. We have dumbbells. When I'm not coaching, I usually, work till 7, and then I go downstairs and I work out. Realistically, I was signed up to play in March of 2020 in the men's league that I've been in since I was in 11th grade.
Yeah. Awesome.
And obviously that got canceled. I just saw an email come through from Yanni Terragadis actually about, I think they're eventually going to start a league. I didn't get to go through the whole email because it was really long, but yeah, I try to stay active. It's very important. Even when I'm coaching and stuff like that, I try to, simulate what we're going to do.
Yeah.
In college, it was more like you were always running, you're always working out, and, they recommended that you like do a lot of weightlifting. And I know a lot of high school kids don't do that essentially, because I was one of those, students that never really weightlifted, but always ran, always played basketball. But like, if you do a combination of the two early and often, it's so much more beneficial. And when you get to college, the season's a lot longer. So you really, really have to maintain your body, and your body goes through a lot more than it would in high school.
Listen, I knew it was time for me to really get out of coaching when I couldn't run or work out with a team. Like when I realized that I was just too old, and I was like, it's right time for me to hang it up, because one of the best parts of coaching is actually getting in the mix with the kids and teaching them and showing them. It's awesome. It really honestly is.
Yes.
It keeps you young as well, which is always
nice.
Nice.
You are correct.
For sure. So Ricardo, I'm gonna end with the last question here, and just wanted to get your perspective, only because you went through it, you lived through high school and graduating and moving on to a new chapter in your life. If you could offer any advice to particularly our high school seniors who are graduating and kind of ready to embark on that next chapter in their lives, their journey, what kind of advice would you offer them?
Oh, there's so much. I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you. And I feel like I talk to the kids about it so much. It's really utilizing the resources that that the school has to offer, right? And early and often. It's hard for me now because I do this twice a month in terms of the student athlete mentor thing, where I'm allowed to work with the seniors. But like really getting a hold of like the younger students at an early age is where like we can benefit, I personally think. And it's just grabbing them early and explaining the why behind everything. I had a Zoom meeting yesterday with my my coworkers, and like we were talking about inclusion and really understanding the why behind everything, right? And that's what a lot of student athletes need to understand, is the why. Like, why am I doing this? Why is it important, right? And I think explaining the long-term goal, mid-term goal, and short-term goal are very important for them to understand the why.
I'm honored that you were able to share a little time with us today, and I'm very happy that we are reconnecting you back to our community in Somerville.
Yes. Oh
That
yeah.
is always nice, So thank you for the time today. We really
Yep.
appreciate you sharing a little time with us today. Okay.
See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Highlander History. Today, I'm honored to have the legendary Gerry Knight, former athletic director at Somerville High School, here with us. Mr. Knight, thank you so much for spending a little time with us today.
Thank you for the invite.
Of course. Mr. Knight, I'm going to start off with the first question. Back when you first became athletic director at Somerville High School, when the very first year you were there, tell us about that process, how you became the athletic director, and kind of how your job changed over the years.
Well, I became athletic director in 1989 after being director of physical education and health. To get the job was the same process as applications and all that kind of stuff. But I thought because my life was so involved in athletics, I'd like to have the opportunity to be part of the athletic program in a different position. And the first year was a little different, especially doing budgets and scheduling. It was whoa, this is a little more difficult than I thought. And parents involvement, coaches, and trying to handle them, trying to be a mentor to people that you're friends with. And when you disagree, there was some issues like that, but it got easier as it went along.
Back when you started, Mr. Knight, were you coaching sports at the same time as well?
No.
Oh.
When I became an administrator back in 80, I think it was 84, 85 year, you really weren't supposed to. It was sort of unwritten rule. You didn't coach anymore.
Yeah.
So I retired from basketball head coach in 84, I believe, and just became physical education and health director and teacher.
I know you coach different sports. I know you loved all sports, but is there one particular sport that is a favorite for you, or something that really stood out that you enjoyed more than any other sport?
Oh, absolutely, basketball. Basketball. I remember the first basketball game I saw at Somerville High School was in 1950 when Ronnie Perry and I think you might remember Mr. Nunziato from the high school.
Yes.
He was on that team, and they won the New England basketball tournament that year. So that was the first time I was exposed to basketball, period. And then I played for Somerville High School, and I was an all-scholastic in basketball, actually. And I ran track, outdoor track, and cross country, and I had pretty good success in track. And then I went on to Northeastern, where I played at Northeastern. So then I came back home and coached for 19 years.
Tell us, I'm sure people would love to know, tell us about your experience at Northeastern. How was that?
Well, it was a learning experience, I can tell you, because I was sort of, when I was in Somerville, I don't want to brag, I'm not trying to brag, but I was sort of a big fish in a little pond.
Sure.
And then when I went to Northeastern, I found out that pond was pretty big, and there was some fine basketball players there. I played with two professional players, Rick Weitzman, who played for the Celtics, and a fellow named Harry Barnes, who played for the Supersonics in Seattle. And you learn a lot from those guys. You become a little bit more humble.
I'm sure. Tell us from the moment you got to Somerville, when you first started working, coaching, and then to the very end when you retired as athletic director. How many years did that cover?
I started coaching in 66, 67 as the junior varsity coach for basketball, and I became a teacher in Somerville in 1969. And I came to the high school in 1975, and I became head basketball coach in 72. And I had a lot of fun. I was so lucky. What talent I had. I was so lucky. I could almost say, okay, go out and do what you want to do. They were that good. They were just great, talented kids. So I was very lucky as a coach. It was so much fun. The best fun, I think, in 1975, I coached my brother David, and they won, and we won 20-0 that year. We were undefeated, and that was really a great thrill for me. And probably my biggest thrill was that in the 19 years that I was the coach at Somerville High School, I don't think we ever had a player that did not grow up in Somerville, except
Wow.
one player who transferred from Quincy, a fellow named Dan Fitzgerald. He's a local businessman now down in got Casey's Bar and Grill. He's a part owner, and he was a real good player, and he helped our team because we had a real good team that year. But that was the only fun. I take pride in that, to know that it was always Somerville. It wasn't a parochial school that had an option to get people from other communities, and
Yep.
there was some hanky panky at other schools. I don't want to get into that, but I take real pride in the fact that we're all Somerville.
As an athletic director, Mr. Knight, was there a particular memory or a couple of memories when you were the AD that really stand out to you?
Well, I do. I can remember and I can't give you the year. It was the girls basketball team when they made the finals of the Eastern Massachusetts tournament. They made it in the Boston Garden.
Wow.
And they lost to Brockton, but to get that far is quite a feat. And the year before, when they lost in 0.3 of a second with a half court shot that cost them, that was a memory. But I was so proud of them. They did such a great job that year. And the other thing that sticks out in my mind is, Stan, is the number of female sports we put in the high school in my years as the athletic director. And I can't give you a positive number, but I know we started volleyball, we started soccer, we had co-ed golf, which never really took off, but we had it. And we put a couple of other girls' sports in, and that really made me happy that we could do that to get the girls more involved into our athletic program.
Tell us, I would love to talk more about that. Like when you were bringing on girls' sports, tell me about some of the challenges.
I got to tell you, I was very fortunate. Everything costs money, as you know. It's not a free thing. It costs you money to run a sport. And our school committee was terrific in developing, pushing not only for more girl sports, more boys sports for that matter. We did have wrestling, which is typically a boys sport. Girls could do it, but they didn't. Actually, they were very good. Our problem was having a facility to do the sports.
Sure.
When you talk about golf, for example, we don't have a golf course. And I don't know where they play now, but we play in Andover, our home matches.
Yeah.
That's where our home matches were. Tennis. Tufts has been wonderful to us because they have the tennis courts. And those are the logistic problems. They're more than willing to help, but we just didn't have the facility, but we did the best we could.
Sure, of course. I know a lot of student athletes, Mr. Knight, over the years you were in charge. A lot of history, a lot of amazing athletes who went on to amazing success. Is there one or two athletes during your years that went on to unbelievable success that really stand out to you?
Well, I guess Mark Van Valkenburg. He graduated in 1980. He went on to Fitchburg State, which I thought he should have done better than that. He should have gone to the higher level of play.
Yep.
But that's all right. He graduated, and he scored over 2,000 points at Fitchburg. And that's quite a feat, scoring 2,000 points in 4 years. That's pretty fantastic. And I do believe he played in Sweden for a couple of years.
Wow.
Gosner Charalus came from Haiti, was going out for the soccer team at 6'7", 270 pounds. So they said, "Well, for football instead." He says, "I am." He says, "You got the wrong name, kid." And they pulled him onto the football field to play. And he got a full scholarship to Boston College, and he also was a number one first-round draft choice for the Detroit Lions. And that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
Wonderful player. So Peter Casparello's one that sticks up in my mind. The people who stick in your reel are those three sport athletes. They're so rare, but we had a lot of them in Summer Life.
One of the things I love doing is when I go down to the equipment room, I love looking at the old trophies, all the success. There's a picture of you when you were coaching. It's unbelievable to see that history and everything, all the accomplishments that those teams and those kids had over the years. It's really unbelievable.
Well, thank you. You were talking about a picture or a trophy. I was Ames envelope. They called me on the phone. They told me they had some old pictures of the old state championship football team from Somerville High School. and this fellow's father played on the team. So I went down to Ames Envelope. It was 1909, state champions in football. 6-0 was the record. And I'm showing my father. And my father looks, and I'm telling him about this fellow from Ames Envelope. He says, well, I just want to tell you something. That's your grandfather in the corner of that picture. So I got a picture of my grandfather when he played football for Somerville High School. I have a picture of my father when he played football for Somerville High School. And I have a picture of my brother when he played for Somerville High School in basketball football. And they're all Johns. So I got John the first, John Senior, Junior, and the third. That was sort of neat. That was really sort of neat.
That's amazing. Tell me, Mr. Knight, over the years, I know how many people, how many lives you've touched and how many people you've connected with. Have you stayed in touch with former players, former coaches, people that, you know, that were a big part of your life and you were a big part of their life over the years?
To tell you the truth, no, I haven't, Stanley. And there's two thoughts, and I'm not sure if I'm right or wrong. I mean, I was always available if they wanted to chit chat, but I never went to their games when they left the high school. I didn't play with them, but they were always welcome in my office. But I really didn't chase after them, see how they played, except my brother, whom that was family, a little different. I figured that once they left the high school, it was time for them to make their own roads, and with another coach, a different style of leadership, whatever it was they were going to do. And I never got overly involved, but every time I see them, we have great memories and great chit chats. I'll tell you that right now.
Sure.
You know, when you're so old, you can't connect with them because you're so much older than them. And then I'm sitting down. This is funny, sort of, Stan. I'm sitting down the other day, and I'm talking to one of my former players. You might know him, Rich Malillo.
Sure.
And I'm talking to him. I said, that guy's 67 years old. How did that happen? How did he become 67? I was his coach. So
Amazing.
time flies.
I'll tell you, Mr. Knight, I told a story the other day. When I first started working here, Mr. Stauffer, Carl Stauffer. So
Sure
Mr.
do.
Stauffer, he comes in my office and goes, hey, Mr. Vieira, do you mind if I speak to you for a couple of minutes? I said, Carl Stauffer is calling me Mr. Vieira. I was terrified of Mr. Stauffer when he was the health teacher. He was one of the coaches here. He was such a large man, big hands. It was amazing. Yeah, so it's amazing as the years go through. Mr. Knight, we have, as you know, and you graduated a lot of student athletes. Every year we have a whole slew of new student athletes who are moving on to college and trades and everything else. I would love to get what advice would you offer these kids who are kind of ready to go on to the next chapter of their lives?
I was thinking about that question. I really almost don't have an answer other than the fact, don't be satisfied.
Yeah.
Don't be satisfied with what you got because you got it. Be looking for something you really want to do and follow that dream. You know, don't say, I want the first job I get. You know, if you want something else, don't be afraid to go after it. It takes time, and you're going to be changing professions, jobs, a ton of times before you find that spot. But just don't give up. Just keep going at it. And it'll, for the most part, it works out. I was very lucky. I couldn't have been happier. I hated to retire. I really did. But when it's time, it's time. But I found that job, and it was just wonderful.
You know, it's amazing, Mr. Knight. I feel like, and I know you, I'm sure you know this, whenever I go out to Somerville and I have my Somerville jacket or my Somerville sweatshirt, I feel like everybody makes a point of grabbing me and saying, hey, I used to live in Somerville, or I married somebody from Somerville. Like, there's a Somerville connection no matter where you go. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it is. It is. In the sports community, the same thing. I mean, I played sports and I coached and everything, and I'll be at a function or whatever, a wedding, and I'll meet say, oh, I remember you coached against me when I played for Everett or this and that. And it's so nice to be remembered and not be sworn at the same time. But that connection is wonderful. It is. Somerville was Somerville. That was a powerhouse in the state.
It's the truth, Mr. Knight. It really is. Mr. Knight, I know that we have a lot going on with COVID and the school is not ready yet, but once we're on the other side and once the school is ready, I hope you'll come back. We'd like to honor you the appropriate way for all the years you put in. I'm so honored to have you here today. Thank you for spending a little time with us today.
Oh, I'm thrilled that I could come back and chit-chat about the history of the school. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Mr. Knight, be safe, be healthy. Thank you so much.
Same to you. Thank you.